Hello, folks. Councilman Rasmussen here, coming to you with my update from our September 5th, 2023 Town Council meeting. This was on a Tuesday because it was Labor Day weekend, and so we delayed the council meetings one day when we do have those weekend holidays like that. So just general updates, some of the stuff from the town tidbits. We had our last Smyrna night, First Friday music on September 1st, it was. I was not able to attend, but we actually finally had some nice weather. 3 of the events this summer, the August, July, and June ones were canceled because of weather problems, so we really only got to do it twice this summer, which is sad. But there was a good turnout of people, as I'm told, and just send a huge thank you to the police department, Chief James, and our public works department. They're really the ones who do all of the work to put on those events for us. They work together very, very well with the staff. It's great to see folks come together and enjoy it. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be at this one, even though it was right down the street from my house, which was great. But my kids wanted to go to their first Blue Rocks game, so their first baseball game, and there's fireworks there, and they really liked that too. So I hope that you got to attend that. We're already planning on the dates for what we're going to be doing next summer, setting the First Friday date and those sort of things. So you'll hear more announcements about that kind of stuff as we lock in those type of things so that you can get them on your calendars right away. Other things in the town, in the sort of like general updates, if you get in the town tidbits, you might see this. We're about to begin the I've mentioned this recycling quality improvement program. This is a partnership between Waste Management, the DSWA, the town. We're a pilot location for trying to make an effort to improve the quality of the recycling, the things that go into our recycling containers, to one, increase recycling in general, and two, reduce the amount of contamination that is in our recycling bins. If you throw garbage into the recycling bin, if you throw things that aren't clean, it creates lots of problems downstream when it goes to processing. And what it means is that a lot of stuff actually ends up getting put into the landfill that could be recycled if it was treated and recycled appropriately. It's a frustration. I know that it's hard for people to understand this because sometimes it changes and it's different. What's recyclable in one community may not be recyclable in another. There was recently a mailer that went out to everybody in town that sort of had a lot of the details on it. Again, there's going to be additional information coming out, and then this program launches on September 11th and carries through to October, where they're actually going to be going around and auditing recycling bins, right? Opening them up and taking a look and seeing what's in them, and then providing people some feedback about, hey, look, here's some things that you're doing that are great, or here's something that you could change that would help improve the recycling. One of the biggest ones that they run into is people like to bag their recycling. So maybe you have a garbage can in your house that's for recycling, all of the stuff goes into it, and you just take a plastic bag of recycling and put it in your bin. Unfortunately, that's not going to get opened, and they're just going to throw the whole thing into the garbage. So things like that, we'll see. It's an effort. It doesn't cost the town anything to participate in this, but it is an effort to try and increase awareness in the town. Hopefully, if it works well here in Smyrna, it'll be rolled out to other communities around the state. So you'll see some more of that kind of stuff coming up. That's the last couple of things from the tidbits. As far as the council meeting last night, updates, there weren't a lot of things. We're kind of finishing the summer. The slow months are coming to an end. One thing I would want to mention, earlier on in this year, we created a new committee. I'm the chair of it. It's called our Pension Review Committee. Myself, Councilwoman Gott, and Councilman Presley are on it, as well as staff members. The goal of the Pension Review Committee, we had our first meeting 2 weeks ago. The goal of the Pension Review Committee is to better plan out the needs of the town as it relates to our legacy pension systems. We have 2, one for police department and one for town staff. Both of those pension systems, as I've mentioned in my videos before, are underfunded. One substantially more underfunded than the other, but both of them, the required contributions for a number of years were not made by the town. We've since remedied that. We are making the required contributions, but we have to play catch up. And so plotting out what that needs to look like, how we responsibly do that. We're talking many millions of dollars that were not contributed. When you add on the interest for 10 years that would have accumulated on those things, that's what we need to make up. We can't just add it all on in 1 year. Massive amount of money that would need to go in, huge tax increases that would be necessary to pay for things like that. It obviously doesn't make sense. But we do need to come up with a plan. And so the Pension Review Committee had our first meeting a couple of weeks ago to start laying that out, to think about, how do we do this responsibly in 10, 15, 20 years, get to the point where those pensions funds are self-sustaining and they don't need contributions from the town in order to make up any potential shortfalls. We're not running into an issue right now, but we could if we don't address these sort of concerns today. So we had our first meeting for that, and we'll be meeting monthly throughout the rest of the year through the budget season to sort of put together a plan. So you'll hear me mention that probably a few more times. As far as agenda items from the meeting last night, it didn't feel like there was a lot, but when I look at the agenda here, there's quite a bit. We have continued a conversation about digitizing some of the old files that we have in our planning and zoning office. We have files going back to, up to 100 years or so that it would be really good to have them digitized. So if somebody comes up and has a question about a piece of property, we're not digging through old boxes that get moved every time we move, that, have the potential for being damaged with moisture and water and things. We had originally thought about just contracting this out to a private company. The cost for that looked to be around $100,000. The town came back and said, hey, maybe we could actually do this in-house and save some money and provide some overtime for some of our staff who might like to earn some overtime. As they started figuring what that would look like out, it comes out to be, could take quite a bit of time, possibly save some money, but there's other staffing issues that it could arise from it. So also investigating, the state has a program for digitizing and preserving documents and getting some better ideas about what exactly they could provide, how that stacks up. So still work going on to figure it out. In the end, the goal is to have all of these old files, these planning maps, these zoning request changes, all of the things attached to pieces of property here, digitized, easily searchable. It'll make our lives easier it'll make the town staff's lives a lot easier when it comes to doing research on properties when there are zoning requests or boundary disputes and things like that we deal with all the time. So that's ongoing. We also, I mentioned this before, there was a conversation about reclassifying one of our staffing positions for a human resource position. In the end, we ended up, I think, reclassifying it as a payroll position in order to go out and try and hire another person to support our finance office and the HR and payroll functions that are necessary there. Administrative type of thing. As far as new business items, one thing that we worked on internally from the town council for a little while here was a town council travel policy. There's never been one in place. It's always been sort of an ad hoc type of thing where if a member of council wants to travel for a meeting or an event or something like that, they've basically just gone to the town manager, said, hey, can we do this? There's been a bucket line item of money that could afford to pay for that. And it's been a little bit confusing. I know I've been on the back end of this in traveling to a couple of leadership conferences where the National League of Cities meetings, where I go and I'm like, they're like, well, you could pay for it yourself, or we could pay for it, and you could be reimbursed if you want, or we could pay for some of it. And it's a little bit confusing of exactly the best way to do that. Unfortunately, wherever there's not clarity and things like this, it means that confusion can lead to problems and questions about whether or not something was in the budget or wasn't. So what we've done is kicked around and adapted a travel policy. I think it's pretty reflective. It's nothing that we're not already doing, but it sort of codifies the procedures and the things that we should follow as a council. And it establishes that there'll be a budget that is tied to each one of the council members that they can ultimately use. So instead of everybody just kind of pulling out one big pot of money, everybody will have their own budget. And if I, want to travel one year and not another, and somebody else wants to travel, and there's not enough money in theirs, we can always move money around for things. To be honest, there isn't a lot of travel that council members do. The National League of Cities, there's a group of, I think it's the Women's Leadership Conference that some of our members attend. There are a few things like the National Main Streets Conference, and then there's local things like the League of Local Government meetings, but it's not much. Maybe one or two people will go to each one of these things a year. So it's never become an issue, but I think the idea is that as we grow, we need to build policies and procedures that make sure it doesn't become an issue down the road. So that's what this effort was mostly about. We did have a little bit of a brief conversation around park hours. There is some confusion about park hours. This sort of stems from the fact that we had some vandalism in the bathrooms at the municipal park, and trying to better understand if there's things that we could do to help control that. Now, this vandalism occurred in the middle of the day. It's not something that closing the bathrooms an hour earlier would have fixed or anything like that. But it does bring up that conversation about, okay, so, what does it mean to have park hours? What does it mean to open and close the parks? Who's doing that work between the town staff and the police department? I think it's more on we need to, and what we found is that there's some inconsistencies likely between our park hours that are posted and what is in our code and what is in our charter. So I think we just need to sort of bring all these things together and come up with a way to make sure that we're consistent across the board. There was last night a request. So the Smyrna Clayton Ministerium, Reverend Riley was there. I was a representative of the Smyrna Clayton Ministerium as a request for some additional funding. They have seen some. So for those folks who don't know, the Ministerium is an organization of churches throughout the Smyrna School District. I believe there's a dozen or so churches that are part of this. They have come together for the last 60 plus years to pool their resources to make sure that they can offer to this community some of the emergency services and some of the help that folks need. So they run a couple of the food banks, one here at the Presbyterian Church next to mine. I forget where the other one is. They also do support for folks who need help paying their utility bills. They do direct support when there's some sort of an emergency or a disaster, helping folks who've been in fires and things like that. A lot that they do, their costs, like everybody else, have continued to go up. They're having to buy more food because they're getting less things from the USDA. And in the end, we usually make a $10,000 allocation to them that goes to support their programs. That money doesn't go as far as it likely would, and they've running out of the funds that they have available with significant time to go. So they came back. Reverend Riley came back, submitted a letter, and came back to the town council for a request for an additional $10,000. Everybody, we want to support these organizations, these members in our community, and I think council was very supportive of this. The question was making sure that we can find a place, if there's a spot where we save some money this year in our budget where we can find that additional $10,000. We instructed the town staff to move forward with allocating it to the ministerium. So another agenda item was a real quick conversation. It's just more of a we need to do type of thing. Most folks know this, when we collect deposits, water meter deposits. Those water meter deposits are supposed to be being kept separately from the town budget, because ultimately they go back to folks. The account that we have those in has money in it that it is possible doesn't actually belong to us. So we need to do an audit of that account. Basically, take all of the existing accounts and all of the accounts that are in this budget and match them up to see what overlaps and what doesn't. If there is funds in that account that should have been remitted back to people, then and if it's over a certain amount of time, we actually have to send it back to the state as a sheets. So it's just an effort over the course of the next 3 months. I think the ask was for the town staff to look at all of this and try and put together a report by the end of the year to see whether or not we have any issues in that water meter fund, where we need to actually be taking some proactive effort to try and return that money either to those individuals or to the state, and then the state can you have it in their Sheets program. And then last thing, we also had the first reading of an ordinance. This is an ordinance discussed at the last meeting to make a change to our vacant property fees. We already collect vacant property fees if a property is sitting empty, has nobody residing or no businesses active in it. There's a risk to the town of additional things like squatters, drug use. There's lots of problems that happen in empty buildings. And there are costs to the town, both real costs in policing and damage and things like that, and perceived costs in that nobody wants to live next to a house that's empty. No one wants to locate a business next to a business that's empty. So we've always had these fees. This is an effort to delineate a little bit between commercial and residential, and to create a scale by which those fees increase. That if you're not registering your property and trying to actively get people in it, it's just sitting there, and you'd be surprised, people own property that they literally just let sit there every year and don't do anything with, because they don't want to invest the money to improve it to try and do anything with it, just kind of sitting on it, and maybe they'll sell it someday type of thing. But it's bad for our community, so trying to make it more advantageous for them to invest in that property, to not have to pay fees associated with leaving that property vacant. This is the first reading of it. An ordinance like this will have 3 different readings. The first reading is sort of here's the general thing, let's ask some questions, let's come back, we'll see it again. There were a few things that I noted in it that I wanted to have changed or clarified better. So there are some stuff like that. We'll see it 2 more times before we formally adopt it as part of the town ordinances. And then the big thing from the conversation last night, we always save the big one for last, was a site plan approval for the state of Delaware. This has been in the news multiple times. The governor has announced it. The state is going to be building a new hospital out at the property that they have just south of Lake Como, at the hospital for the chronically ill. It is a 119,000 square foot hospital that they're talking about building, 3 floors. It's one of actually 3 projects on that property. Most folks have probably already seen the state lab, the addition that has been going on there. There's going to be another building being built to the back side of that, an expansion of some DenRec stuff, and then this is the biggest of the 3 projects. It is a very substantial change for that property. It, at the moment, won't increase the overall traffic there, but I think most folks would realize that portion of Sunnyside Road, that interchange there that goes out to Route 13 into Smyrna-Lipsick Road, was really not built for a hospital and offices and the types of things that they need. Also, the site layout has been kind of cobbled together over decades. And so as part of this process, they need to make some very substantial changes to their property, to possibly the intersections to Sunnyside Road in that area. There's a lot that goes into this. DelDOT has to be involved. Everyone has to be involved. It's like 4 different state agencies that have to be involved in this because of who's on the property, and then you throw DelDOT in the mix because it involves roads. The developers, the planners, and the architects have been working very closely with our town staff for a while, going back and forth, getting feedback, looking at the best options. They're doing things like meeting with the fire department, the police department, the ambulance service, trying to address all of the potential concerns, because you're talking about a building that will probably be there and serving people for another 100 years. And as this is built, the existing hospital, which is, I believe, about 60,000 square feet, will first be vacated, but eventually will be likely renovated and used as offices or other things for the state, which means that there could be, down the line, a significant increase in traffic if that is used as offices or other things. So we need to plan not just for what we have now and what for will be in the near future when the new hospital is built, but also the much longer term future, as the highest and best use of that property gets sort of utilized over the course of a number of years. A lot of back and forth, a lot of questions about how things will be done, and some of this is minutia about how are the trees going to be planted and where are their right-of-ways going to be necessary, how wide are the turning lanes, that side of stuff. Some of it is more really high-level things about the town wants to make sure that the improvements to the roads, the things that really address our citizens' concerns, are not forgotten. We see this with a lot of developers who come along, want to build a bunch of houses, and then don't live up to the expectations of the citizens in our community by making sure that the roads, the curbs, the amenities in those developments are actually what they promised. While the risk is lower that the state could do this, it's also not non-existent. There's always changes, there's always budgetary pressures. So we want to make sure that the site improvements, the road improvements, those sort of things that will address some of the concerns of our community members aren't things that are forgotten. And so there's still conversations to go. There will likely be some memorandums of understanding that are part of the legal agreements that go into this to make sure that the town gets a product out of this that we think best represents the community and what our needs are. Sorry, I got a fly flying around here. So more to come, but this was the site plan approval. Us basically saying, yes, you can move forward with this. We'll see the MOU, and then there'll be a final plan and site approvals. Those things will be done with the Planning and Zoning Office and the Planning Commission. So, big project, not done. Plan is the end of 2026. Most of this is being paid for with ARPA money, federal stimulus money. So it all has to be expended by, I believe, the end of December 2026. Their general timeline is they would like to be breaking ground on this project late 2024. So you've got another year of planning and other work that'll likely go into it. And then it's an 18 to 24 month build time for the building. So we've already seen the new addition to the lab it looks like it's ready to go there. I'm sure there's still a ton of work to do inside. There'll be more construction going on that's already been approved starting on the back side of that property. This will be the last of the big 3 projects. And we've still got another 2+ years until it all come to fruition. So those are the big items. Everything else that we had was we did a presentation of public comments, folks concerned about developers finishing their roads and a few things that we were continuing to work on. But that's the major stuff. So as always, if there are any questions or comments or needs, please reach out. I'm happy to do what I can. And our next council meeting will be on September 18th. So you'll hear from me after that. Take care, everybody. Have a great week. Be well.